Thank you for joining today's session, everybody. We're just going to give it a couple minutes so that everybody can get into the session, and then Daryl Brown will kick it right off.
Hello, everybody. My name is Daryl Brown. Welcome to the webinar, Deep Dive into Cloud Print Management. I work for product marketing, and I'm the specialist for output management. And our agenda today consists of print landscape, print management, cloud output, challenge, trend, opportunities, and shifting to cloud. And then I'm going to switch over to our subject matter expert, who's an enterprise solutions consultant for Toshiba, to go over our product positioning matrix, relevant markets, and output management opportunities. So I'd like to kick things off for our webinar today by talking a little bit about the print landscape. So the print landscape has gone through the change. So the great location flip. So the way we work, where we work, when we work, it's changing. The past 3 to 5 years have been crazy. So we work anytime, any place, any device. It is the new normal. So people still print, right? And we notice some nice things happening when people print. 81% pay more attention in meetings if they have a printed copy of the materials being presented. They're also 75% say they're more productive in meetings when they can look at a printed document. And then everyone's looking down at a device or something, it seems like nowadays. So 75% are more likely to multitask when they're on a computer or tablet in a meeting. So printing definitely has value concerning meetings. That's one thing in the print landscape. And then we move into our vertical markets where people want to print. So you might be the teacher in education that wants to print something over the weekend and pick it up on Monday when they go to work. You might be wanting to access devices just like you're in the office. If you're in financial services, remote access to anything and print. And then your government workers could be printing anywhere remotely, whether it's in the field or at home, and come into the office and then securely pick up their print jobs. Healthcare wants access from anywhere, the ability to send documents remotely and connect to the printer from outside of the network. This has to be done securely and with compliance, but we do that. And then legal wants to be able to use any device. So whether it's mobile phone, tablet, laptop, legal's looking for a way to do that. And what are they printing? So the survey results say most of the time it's like Word documents, spreadsheets, documents for signature, and then there's other categories below that. So we're printing a lot of different things in today's environment. But the organization's top 3 business priorities, typically security number 1, print security. So that's very important. Digital transformation, looking at that workflow to transform things to digital, as well as cloud platforms, very important. Now we're here today to speak about cloud, so that's very apropos. So here's some trends about cloud print management adoption. Right now today, 69% of businesses have already adopted some sort of cloud print management solution, and that's up from 55% just a year ago. So the trend is to move towards the cloud. And 74% of organizations work in a hybrid environment where they're doing some things on premise and some things in the cloud. But what you don't see here is how many people are actually using the cloud 100% for their print environment. Today it sits around 4%. But just in the next 2 years, that's going to quadruple, maybe a little more than quadruple, to survey results of 18%. So if you take a look at that trend, we're really moving towards cloud printing. And then there's challenges when you're talking about a traditional print driver deployment. So all the things required to install print drivers, the correct ones to the right people. IT said it's the top challenge for printing, about half. And it's not easy. So 42% find it challenging to do all the steps that are required to install, update, and keep print drivers working within their organization when you're talking about a traditional setup. And then security is important for the update of your print driver. 38% of all companies worry about those drivers not being updated. And then we talk about the larger companies that have like 1,000 or more employees, it's like 43%. So there's definitely challenges there. This slide's my conundrum slide. I look at this and I see that a third of the companies have experienced at least one print-related security breach over the last 12 months. I find this interesting because organizations that view security as important or very important to their overall IT strategy is only 62%. So that seems like it should be higher in my world. So I'm thinking there needs to be something better for security in that respect. So a little bit out of whack with a 1 in 3 chance over the course of 12 months. So let's talk about print management cloud output. So the traditional print infrastructure definitely has its challenges. There's what I call the number one herding of the cats. You have to manage and support several devices in different locations, and it's not usually easy. It's a heavy lift, and it's hard to do. To maintain and upkeep multiple print servers not only costs a lot, which we'll see a little bit later, but also takes a lot of time and resources. And then it's difficult to track and monitor printers and their print activity because you're cobbling information together from multiple points at best. So it's not efficient. Print cost, paper waste, toner, all that stuff is not optimal at this point because you're printing extra, you're using extra supplies when you're not using an optimized print infrastructure. And then also you're protecting sensitive information from unauthorized access. That's almost impossible in a traditional environment. You see a lot of prints laying out on devices, things like that, and people getting their hands on information. And then you also want to give the remote workers access, like we had talked about in the beginning, as if they were in the office. So doing that with the traditional print infrastructure is very difficult. So if you take a look at those print servers, there's some statistics here of dollar cost. So the cost to maintain, upgrade, and replace print servers in the first bullet point here is $3,400 yearly. And then your cost per hour is $150 an hour, which could be up to 10 hours worth of work. And so that's a monthly figure. So that could be up to $1,500 a month. Maintaining one print server costs $2,000 to $3,000 a year. And according to PaperCut, and that is a lot when you're talking about multiple print servers, right? It just multiplies itself out. And then Gartner's saying the cost of a Windows print server averages about $5,000 a year for licensing, storage, and maintenance. So there's your cost. And that's not even counting some of the external soft costs. So solution of print management, there's three main attributes that need to be in a print management solution, and that's be able to have control, insight, but no compromises. So you should be able to manage your printers, manage the specific printer functionality so the right users have access to the right feature sets, like some people being able to print color and maybe some folks not printing color. You should always have users authenticate so you know who's printing what, and then securely release the print jobs into their hands. You should also be able to establish and enforce print policies and limits according to whatever your print strategy hopefully you've developed, right? So you need that control. And then you need to be able to report on that through visibility to the print activity. You want visibility to cost down to the penny, track the printer volume, and also be able to have customized reports and alerts so that you could see that things are moving in the intended direction, or have data so you can make data-driven decisions on what to do next to optimize your print environment. And you should be able to drill down to your print activity to the user, the department, address, project, whatever. And then we do all this, but we don't want to take anything away. We want to give that support across the enterprise for all printer brands and full functionality. And it also doesn't matter what operating system you're on, whether it's Windows, Mac, Chromebook, mobile. It needs to be able to support all of that. So what about cloud-based print management? That's what we're here to talk about today, right? So cloud offers many advantages as compared to an on-premise solution. So first of all, you don't need the print servers necessarily. You have a zero on-premises infrastructure, which is much easier to manage from one point. You can utilize one lightweight print driver to rule them all. You can get on board quickly through your directory sync. So that allows you to sync up fast and move quickly to get on board and run your cloud, vendor managed solution. And when you do that, you keep things updated. So everything's updated. It's a subscription service and it's managed by vendor, and it's much easier to use. And so if we talked about the shifting print infrastructure of cloud, there's 5 important considerations to look at. The first of all piece is we talked about security, right? So the ability to support zero trust, so you're always verifying the printing application, is very important. That's number 1. So security. Remote efficiency, so the hybrid workforce that works from everywhere, you're able to support that through the cloud. You're also able to reduce the burden on IT through modernizations of the print environment and free up the resources to do the initiatives that they're supposed to be able to do. And then you're getting rid of those print servers, so it supports things through the cloud, and that's more efficient than on-site print infrastructure. And then you're also maintaining your security compliance, so you could adhere to the corporate policies and compliances that your business has in place that you need to follow. But how do we make sense of all this? We have to position things right. We have to discover correctly. And that's why I have a true subject matter expert to hand this off to, named Paul Hosey. Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl. So we're going to talk about some of the positioning today of where some of these different systems may come into play. So when we're starting to look into your internal systems, and this could really be something that a Toshiba professional consultant can really help out with, it's going to be some things that we're going to look to uncover and to find out a little bit about where you are as a customer, where you are in that journey. So we'll really start with, where are you in that cloud transformation? You know, some things that we see as trends that are starting to move forward to, that are really good indicators. You know, have you really started to utilize something like a Microsoft Entra ID or Google Workspace to manage that user directory space? Do you have intentions to reduce your on-premise server infrastructure? This is something very, very common that a cloud-based output management system can really help out with. You know, how many print servers are you currently using? Those print servers, as Daryl mentioned earlier, there's a cost associated to implementing and managing and maintaining those print servers. Does your organization have challenges maintaining those print drivers? How much time do you think your IT staff is actually spending on installing those printers? That can be a really time-consuming job for any IT professional. How many help desk calls are printing related issues being generated? What concerns do you have about prints being left out on printers? You know, there's significant security concerns related to the data that might be on those documents. You know, is that something that's important? And really, what's the impact of one of those documents that really should be secured? What's the impact if that was to be leaked out of the organization? That may have some different costs, maybe they're financial related costs, or even reputational costs to that organization, something that we really need to keep in mind from a security perspective. And then also, you know, is color printing being abused by certain users in your organization? And do you really know for sure if that actually is the case? Without tools in place, it may be really challenging to identify where a lot of the print volume may be coming from, and where maybe some of that unnecessary print volume could be from. You know, in an education environment, do you really know how many color pages are being printed by your students? You know, something to really keep in mind, you know, just implementing a simple follow me print, secure print strategy can really reduce your total output by 20%. These are things that we can all do typically from a cloud perspective. So you may, depending on where you are in that technology journey to the cloud, there's some differences that when we consider the cloud versus on-premise. So some of those differences being on a typical on-premise side, we do typically see a higher hardware cost. There's an extensive burden to the IT department that's going to come in the way of maintaining those devices and those drivers. And it typically is an expensive maintenance and support perspective, some things that are really going to have a significant cost there. Now, on the cloud side, we can really, when we look to a cloud output management system, we are typically trying to lower that hardware cost, eliminating those on-premise servers that once upon a time were really necessary. And there's a lot of things that we can do just from a cloud infrastructure now. By driving towards that cloud and eliminating those hardware components, that's going to enable that IT department to really reduce and maybe point some of their efforts in some other areas. Cloud in general is going to come with some of the inherent security capabilities as well. So when we look at some of the differences, if you've been following along with the some of the previous, or one of the previous webinars that we did, we talked about enablement and manage. And really, when we look at that, the focus of where we see enablement applications or solutions compared to a more substantial management system. Typically, the client size is a little bit larger that has a management requirement. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule, because you may have a smaller organization that can really see some of the benefits out of enabling a cloud-based output management system. Some of the features that we see from an enablement perspective, we're really looking to just simplify and enable users to be able to print easier. Okay, from when we move up into a management style system, then we have some new requirements that might be needed. So some things like being able to offer granular reporting, maybe routing policies, or maybe cost saving policies to really make sure that we have full control over what that organization is utilizing. Now, from an enablement perspective, in that user scope, typically we see something on the no or a low cost identity management, something maybe like Office 365. And then as we move into some of the management applications, we typically see that organizations are leveraging user directories a little bit more. So something like an Entra ID or Google Workspace. And then again, the overall goal in these applications typically, or in these solutions, is really to simplify and enable from enablement perspective. And then management is not only to enable the users to be able to print easier and in a more simple fashion, but to provide you with the insight and the control over what your organization is utilizing from a print perspective. So to really give you the tools from a management application that's going to help simplify some of those processes. So if we're looking again specific to that management type of application, what we typically see, and again, not really hard and fast rules, but some of the customers that we find have some requirements around these more substantial management systems is something like a larger K through 12 district. So if you're in that education space in a larger school system, I should say, a lot of the features that are going to be available in a management application are going to be a little more pertinent. You may be in a manufacturing logistics space using something like thermal and barcode printing devices. Output management, cloud output management systems really can have some benefit there. And especially in the transportation industry, when we have some kind of disconnected environments, this is something that can really help out from a cloud perspective, because we can eliminate some of those on-premise servers or on-premise hardware that might be required. Now, in a management solution, some of the features really can be tied to providing that insight and providing that control for your users. So you may have a need to report on the print usage in that organization. And with some cloud print systems, we can offer a multi-level reporting structure. So we can see what's going on in different business units or different areas or different locations. Management is also going to give some cost-saving policy capability. So to be able to control what that cost and what those budgets are from a print perspective, cloud output management solutions can really help out there. Another really key feature that we see from a management perspective, from a cloud perspective, that can be really very important, is automating that print driver management. So being able to make sure your users have the right print capability when they need it and where they need it is something that a cloud system may be helpful for. Now, again, in a management perspective, we also see, and you may find yourself in one of these camps, that you might be using something like Microsoft Entra ID or Google Workspace, and you want to be able to leverage that investment that you've already made. So cloud output management can really tie in with these cloud user directory structures, and we can leverage those different components. Now, some of the goals, aside from being able to enable printing and simplify that print process, a lot of the goals around a management solution really come in the way of maintaining security or elevating the security within your organization and reducing that IT burden. That comes in the way from a couple of different perspectives that we can really help to eliminate print servers in those organizations. So that's going to reduce a lot of the IT burden, but not only reduce that IT burden, but you know, it may be important for you to have a vendor managed service. So your print vendor can not only support your on-site hardware and maybe your on-site applications, but maybe there's a requirement to be able to manage the entire output management system and how that data flows within the devices. So that becomes something that can be very important for one of your vendors to be able to manage those components of the application. So again, some cornerstone components that we see when we're looking at some of the cloud output management options that we could bring to the table, things like secure print release. So this really comes in the way of enabling the security capability of a device, that we can now do things like secure print release or find me printing, where we can hold jobs at a device and then release that job to make sure the right person is receiving that print job. In a larger organization, the ability to organize your print assets may become a lot more important as well. So maybe we want to put something together in a bit of a tree hierarchy, so you can leverage the reporting capabilities and leverage some of the user database structures that might be available. Job accounting is really a cornerstone component that we can provide insight and some data as to where those print devices are being heavily utilized from. Automating that print driver deployment, again, being able to take that off of the IT's plate and really automate some manual tasks. Again, being able to leverage those user directories, and even doing things like making the print system location aware of where those devices and where those computers might be in use at that time, and being able to automate that print process. Being able to implement some cost-saving policies where we can, from a fleet-wide perspective, that we can force things like maybe duplex printing, or maybe you want to force black and white printing for a certain group of users. Or maybe we want to prompt for some accounting codes to have some more accountability to the user's print volume and their print usage. And then finally, you know, a very key component is being able to have your vendor manage your entire print system. So this is not only to, again, manage the on-site and fix that, you know, maybe that printer that might be jamming or needs some toner and things like that, but to be able to have a vendor partner that's going to have the ability to manage the entire organization's print structure and print streams. So let's take a look at some of the markets and some of the areas that we see cloud print management really being an important key point. Now, you may not find yourself neatly in one of these buckets, but there's probably a market that's very similar to some of these different components that we're looking at. So if we look at from a small enterprise space, some things that we see that are very important that cloud output management systems can probably help out with is maybe mitigating the risk of that unattended confidential documents that are being left at the devices, being able to track and monitor all the activity, whether that's print or copy, and that might be important from a compliance and a regulation standpoint. Implementing something like user quotas or department budgets to make sure that we really have a handle on what that print expense looks like. And also to help prevent unauthorized access to sensitive information. So being able to control that print flow and the copy flow may be something that's important to you. And then finally, the ability to automate that printer installation. Several benefits there that we can reduce some of that IT outlay and that IT overhead, I should say. Now, in the transportation space, there are some other components that we found are more important. So things like having the freedom from your, your typical print server, especially in a organization that might have multiple locations that are spread out geographically. Being able to reduce print servers and bring that management capability to the cloud might be a really key objective for you. Scalability and being able to grow as your organization grows from a print perspective, and being able to manage not only from a starting point, but having a solution in place that can grow along with your goals. Security of those sensitive document informations, things like manifests and invoices and compliance reports all really need to be maintained in the way that security gets handled. And having a solid cloud output management system that allows you to protect that communication in transit and at rest can be very important. And then, cloud output management provides that central point of management. So when you have those distributed offices in different locations, the ability to be able to manage those from all one pane of glass can be a very important component in a transportation area. So if we look at manufacturing logistics, a couple of different points that might be important. So being able, again, to track printing, to identify that excessive printing, and maybe implement some of those cost-saving policies, eliminate those unclean print jobs and reduce a lot of the paper waste. And again, centralized management of all those devices, including, in a lot of cases, we see some barcode and thermal print usage in those areas, and having a fully capable output management system that can utilize and manage those devices as well may be something that's very important in your environment. Now, if you're in the education space, there are some really big benefits that you can draw out of a cloud output management system. So some things that we have found that are very important that we want to make sure that we can help out our customers with is really the ability to implement quotas or follow me printing to control that printing, and then reduce your spend on a lot of output print budgets. I had mentioned a few slides back that just by implementing something like a follow me print technology, you can really reduce your overall output by about 20% in some cases, and we can really even take it beyond that if there's a lot of waste in an environment. Being able to allow for that secure pull print eliminates those unclaimed print jobs and paper waste in the education space. That might be something like healthcare related information, or maybe individualized education plans. Those are sensitive documents that really want to make sure that we're maintaining the security of those documents. Being able to identify excessive prints and help educate users on responsible print habits, something that we can really provide some insight on, and then apply some control rules to it. Integrating your output management system with your existing student ID cards can really help speed adoption and maintain that security, really speed up the authentication to the devices themselves. And you may have cards in your environment right now that we want to integrate a print output management solution with, and that's something that you can do with a cloud output management system. Allocating print budgets to departments or student groups for better cost control. And finally, help secure printing with that user authentication and access control to make sure that we're adhering to some of those data privacy regulations that might be in place. Now, cloud output management systems, may not be the right fit for every organization. Toshiba can really help out with, going through that discovery process to make sure we're identifying what's important to you as a customer. Some things that may be outside of that capability of a cloud system, some things like higher education billing integration, maybe mainframe printing, or possibly really specific color profiler tools may not always be the best fit. Sometimes they could be, but may not all the time. Now, in those situations, you may be better fit for something like an on-premise management system that has a different tool set that might be capable. So if you find yourself having some interest in what does that look like, and can I benefit from an on-prem or a cloud system, we have another webinar coming up on August 21st that's really going to dive into some of the differences and some of the advantages on both sides of on-prem versus cloud. So I think I'm going to pass it back to Daryl and Colin if we have any questions that we can help out with.
Thank you, Paul. Yeah, we'll give it a second just to see if any questions come in. If you do have any questions, feel free to put them into the question area of the webinar platform, and we'll be sure to answer them here. If we don't end up getting to your question, we'll be sure to reach out to you individually as well. But I'll just give it a second here and we'll see if any questions come in. Alrighty. So yeah, we have one here. I believe this is for Paul. How do you integrate scanning into a cloud print management system?
That's a great question, Colin. So, you know, as important as print is and being able to retrieve those documents, we may have those printed documents already that we need to turn into a digital format, and the Toshiba device is a really great way to digitize those and make them more available. So, you know, from a hardware perspective, some of the cloud output management systems enable us to do things like single sign-on, where we can sign on using cloud output management system and have that authentication pass for scanning. Being able to scan using the native features of the device, or maybe some of the other eBridge Plus add-ons that we have in the MFP, we can really streamline that user experience where a user authenticates once with a swipe card, and then they can scan back to their own email address very simply, just by scanning using the native functions of the device, or maybe scanning into something like a OneDrive or a Google Drive. So cloud output management systems give that capability of maintaining the authentication through the entire life cycle of the document, from creation to print.
Very nice. We have another one here. What are the smallest sized businesses where people usually deploy a cloud print management solution?
I can answer that. This is Daryl again. Paul, thank you for your material. To answer that question, I'm thinking of three things. First of all, scalability. You can really start as small as you want with the cloud-based solution, and you also unlock the mobility feature set so that you have the benefits of printing from anywhere. And you do it with the third thing, which is a really light lift from an IT perspective, because say you're a small company and you just, you only have a device or two or something like that to start off with at least. You don't really need a lot of infrastructure or expertise. It's a vendor managed offering and it's scalable. So if and when you grow, kind of build it out like our friends at Lego. That's pretty much my answer, if that answers the question.
Perfect. I think we have one more here that I can see. How do we get started and find out if this would be the best fit for us?
That's a great question too, Colin. I would say reach out to your Toshiba representatives that can help in this discovery model. So, working with one of the Toshiba consultants, it's really going to give the ability to dig into your system, allow them to ask some questions about your environment and really what's important to you. What are the things and the goals that you're trying to achieve as an organization? And then we can help to align the right strategy and the right solutions in some cases to be able to help accomplish some of those goals that you might have. That might come in the way of reducing your print servers and securing your print data and your prints at the device. It may also come in the way of just simply trying to enable printing to facilitate an easier method for your users to interact with the print devices. Either way, the Toshiba System Solution Consultants can really help out in uncovering some of those things that really are going to be important, and then align that with the right strategy to accomplish those goals.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Paul. So I don't see any other questions in the pod right now, so I think that's a great way to wrap things up here. If you do have any questions beyond today, I encourage you to reach out to your local Toshiba representative, as Paul mentioned, and we can further the conversation, uncover any possibilities. But on behalf of Toshiba and everybody here today, I wanted to thank you for joining our session. We hope to see you online again in our future technology webinar. Thank you.